Hey, I'm David Bennett, and I've negotiated over 40k worth of raises in the last 4 years. And today I'm going to reveal the exact step by step formula that I use to negotiate multiple 10k raises plus within that same period of 40k. So, before we get into the kind of more advanced stuff on exactly how I did that, I'd like to start with why it's so important to negotiate. And that might sound a bit basic to some of you, but I promise if you stick with me, it'll make sense why I started there, and we'll get onto that more advanced stuff for how to negotiate those chunky raises later. So please stick with me while I talk about why it's so important to negotiate. And the reason I want to talk about this is because so many of the people that I speak to and work with are reluctant to negotiate. Either they're nervous to, or they might not even understand or comprehend that you can negotiate. They might just be accepting of their company. My company gives me a salary and that's that. And that's what I was about 5 years ago before I started the process of learning how to negotiate effectively. And it was like a mind-blowing moment when I first discovered that I could. So if that's you and you're having your mind blown right now, then great. Start of a great journey for you. But that might be one of the reasons, or maybe you just don't want to negotiate. Like there are lots of reasons why. Well, you don't understand the importance of it, maybe. But there are lots of reasons why people don't do it, and people definitely don't do it enough. It's absolutely crucial to success in growing your salary quickly, consistently, and sustainably. Negotiation is key to that process. So if you're looking to grow your salary, negotiation, you have to do it. Now let's have a think about first, what are the things that you need to do to get the best raises? And for me, in my experience, there are three key things that you need to do. The first thing you have to do is probably the most basic, that is probably on the tip of all of your tongues. It's to perform. You have to be a high performer. You can get a raise with average performance. You might be able to get one. But I would never push you to be an average performer. I would always say try and be the best. Try and be a high performer, because that's what's going to get you the best raises. So you've got to be a high performer. You've got to understand what high performance is. And then you've got to hit those markers and even be pushing the next level up. Like, what are the people in the level above me doing that I can be doing in order to show that I'm kind of ready for that next step? That's what real, true high performers are going to be doing. So that's the first one. If you're doing that, you're one step closer to a really big raise. Second thing you've got to do is, if you think about what a business wants, it wants people who are great at their jobs. Like that's awesome. But what it also wants is people who can grow and expand and take on more responsibility over time. That's a huge, huge benefit to any business, because your impact scales as you take on more responsibility and maybe take on more management and reports. You can teach them to do what you were doing, and then you can have a team of people doing what you were doing, maybe 5 times the amount of people doing what you were doing when you were just one person. So it's really valuable for you to grow and take on more responsibility for your business. And so the way that you can display that is through your potential. And the way to display potential is to learn new things at work, take on and do and learn new things, and show that you can be good at them and that you can learn quickly. That's the way to show potential. And then something that comes completely hand in hand with that, it's critical, is you have to show the ambition to take on the additional responsibility to fulfill that potential. So potential without ambition is useless to a business, because you're not going to take on the roles and the responsibilities needed to bring the benefit to the business through the potential that you have. So you have to show your potential and show your ambition as well. So that's the second thing. If you're doing both of those, if you are performing well to a high level, if you're showing your ambition, showing your potential, then you're really well on the road to a high salary increase. And then the third thing that you've got to do, which you may have guessed by now, is to negotiate. If you don't negotiate, your business will not give you what you deserve. It's just how they operate, how businesses work. You cannot expect a business to maximize the amount of money it gives you and pay you the maximum that you're worth. Really get to that edge point. It's not going to do that because it's not in the interest of the business. It's not anyone's fault in the business that you work for, because there is a lot of pressure on businesses, right? Costs are high, taxes are going up. It's hard for them to decide to pay people more because it is a tough climate. You know, a lot of businesses are failing, redundancies are happening. So you have to fight for your increase through negotiation, and you can do it in a collaborative way, which we'll come to. But that's why it's so critical to negotiate. The business is going to minimize the amount it can give you while keeping you happy, essentially. So if it thinks that you're happy, it's kind of like you can kind of predict it like a set of logic. If the business thinks that you're going to be happy with very little increase, it will definitely give you that small increase most of the time. You might get these rare cases, and I've been lucky enough to have a few really, really good managers who have given me those extra increases when I didn't ask for them in my time. So I'm very, very grateful for that. But those are quite rare. You don't always get that. And usually you're going to have to negotiate to get the salary that you're worth. So those are the three things you're going to have to do. You're going to have to perform, you're going to have to show your potential ambition, and then you're going to have to negotiate. And if you do all those three things really well, I'm telling you right now, I promise you, you will have 10k raises flying past your head faster than you can imagine. You're going to improve so fast if you can do those three things, and you're going to grow your salary so fast if you can do those three things really well. So the reason that I talked about those three things is because I wanted to talk about like the importance of negotiation in relation to those things. So most people who talk about growing your salary focus on performance, and performance is important. We've talked about it there, but it's actually only, 20-30% of the overall. It's not as important as people think it is. You can actually get quite a big raise with an average performance if you're good at negotiating. And that's how people who are, you know the type. There are those people who have a bit of the gift of the gab. They make their way up the ranks of an organization. Everyone knows who they are. They're kind of not delivering, but they talk a really big game and they've got a big salary, and they've got there by talking their way around and through it. And those are the people who are good at negotiating in a way, but they aren't good at performance. So it just shows that skill in communicating and negotiating is the thing that's really going to drive most of your salary gains. And if you can do it off a foundation of great performance and a foundation of ambition and potential, you're going to find the negotiation really easy. These people with the gift of the gab, they're so good at communicating, and they've really learned and mastered that art that they can do it even without that foundation of performance and potential. They found a way to do it. But that's not what we're going to do here. What we're going to do is build that foundation of performance, build the foundation of potential, and then on top of that, we're going to find negotiation really easy, because we've got a really clear case based on that performance and that potential. So that kind of hopefully demonstrates a bit, and I'll just tell you a quick story to make it even clearer and hammer home why you need to negotiate, because I know how much people put this off from my experience. So let me explain to you about the first time. So I got my first head of department gig a couple of years ago, and about a year in, I knew I was doing a really good job. I knew I had done a really good job over the last year, so I decided to ask for a pretty chunky salary raise for about 20%, and I did it using the process that I'm about to talk you through. So hold up for that, it's coming. And basically, I asked for a lot, and it is a lot, 20%, but I think it was the right amount. And my case, which we're going to go through in a minute, backed that up. I had all the reasons as to why I deserved that additional amount, and I think it was the right amount. So I presented that to my manager, but unfortunately I had this really gutting moment where a few weeks later she told me that I was going to be getting about 3%, which was like really demotivating and hard to hear, because I knew that I was worth a lot more than that. And so I didn't give up at that point, because I knew I had this strong case, and I knew that the 3% was the wrong amount. And so I went back and forward, and over a period of a month or two, basically what happened was kind of miraculous, given the state of the business that I was working in, and how tight the money was for salaries. They actually gave me exactly what I was asking for. And so I got that 20%. And it just goes to show, the reason that I'm telling you now is that if I had not said anything, they would have assumed that I was happy with 3%, and I would have got 3%, and that would have been it. That would have been the end of it. There would have been nothing else. I could have been performing, and I was, to the top of my level, really high performance. I could have been showing ambition and potential. I was. And I would have still got 3%, because I didn't negotiate. So that, just to show you that negotiation is the most important of the three, is that story there. And just for those of you, to hammer this home, for those of you that are really data conscious, there is a final thing that I'll share with you, which is that there is a study, I can't remember what journal it's in, but I'll put it in the description. There's a study from 2011, I think, where a group of new starters for roles in the US were surveyed, and the reviewers controlled for a few factors to level the playing field across all these new starters. And what they found was, for the same sort of roles, the people who negotiated started on average $5,000 more than the ones who didn't, and that's for the same type of role. And that's about $6,500 in today's money. So there is so much evidence to show how important negotiation is. So that's the thing that I really wanted to drive home, and that's why I wanted to start with the why behind why negotiation is important, so that hopefully you understand now that you've got to do it. You just have to try. And I know that it can be nerve-wracking, but hopefully this next step that I'm about to show you now will help with those nerves. So there are two keys to negotiation that I'm going to share with you, and there's a lot more to it, and I could do 1,000 videos on it, which maybe I will, but this is the first one, and so I'm going to give you the two most important things. The first one you just learned, it's that you have to actually negotiate. You have to do something. Just put an offer on the table. That's the most important thing. The second most important thing is to do it with a strong case, and a strong case that is backed up by your performance, your potential, and your ambition, essentially. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to create a case, and I call it a salary case document. So that's what we're going to go through now at a high level. We're going to create a salary case document which explains how much you're asking for and why it's the right amount for you. So what does a salary case document look like? Okay. At the top, you're going to have a title, which is, if it was for me, I might put David Bennett Salary Review, July 2024. And then below that, I'm going to say I'm asking for X thousand, maybe it's £60,000 in the next salary review. And this document explains the key reasons why I believe that that amount is a fair amount and reflective of my performance. Something along those lines is how to start it. And there are a few key sections that I've found to be most valuable. I've sort of experimented with a few different ones, but I'm going to give you the three sections that I found to be the most impactful and valuable in a salary case document. And the three sections are: The first one is the ROI of your role, and ROI means return on investment. And don't worry if that doesn't make sense right now, I'll explain it in a minute. The second one is benchmarking, and that means essentially just checking the market, like what are other people being paid for similar roles. And the third is how your responsibilities have grown since the last pay review. So let's talk about the first one then. ROI, if you can do this one well, it's by far the most impactful, but it is the hardest to do well. So don't worry if you struggle with it. It's not the end of the world if you struggle with it. So ROI means return on investment. It's the best way that a business can make decisions about how it spends its money. So if you are a good return on investment and your role is a good return on investment, then the business is clearly spending its money well with you, and it can spend more money on you at a higher salary. And so as a rule of thumb, if you can prove that your role is worth 3 times or more, and especially if you can get a lot more what the business spends on you, then you are a shoo-in for a good raise if you can prove that. And the way that you prove it is you calculate the amount of revenue that you have brought into the business, and you add on the amount of costs that you've saved the business. Now, some people will only have one or the other. They might not have both. And the way to kind of work it out is on the revenue side, think about what kind of things have you done over the past year that has driven revenue for your business. And so it can be quite hard to think of. I'll give you a few examples. One of them might be as a marketing manager, you started a new campaign which brought in 500 customers, and each customer is worth £100 to the business. So that's the 500 times 100. So that'd be 50k. That's the total amount of revenue brought into the business. It might be that maybe you work on the frontline operations support, and maybe you got the best customer satisfaction support scores, and you've been maybe you dealt with 100 angry customers, and 75 of those came off the calls feeling much better that you'd solved their issue. And so you can make an assumption that those 75 customers would have churned and left the business without you, but actually you convinced them to stay. And so 75 times the value of a customer roughly would be the amount of revenue that you've saved the business there. And so there are a bunch of things that you could do. It might be that you're just a salesperson and you brought in 50k of revenue. Great, that's a nice easy one. So there are a bunch of things you can do there, and then you add up all of the revenue you've brought in. Then on the cost side, you can think a bit about maybe you're in a budget, maybe you saved 20k off the top of the budget, you achieved your goals but 20k under, and so you save 20k of costs. That's 20k to add on to your return. And then you might have, I don't know, maybe you made an operational process improvement, which meant that we needed one fewer person to run a process, and that person's salary was 25k a year, and so you save the business 25k a year. Those types of things are what you should be thinking about. And what you're going to do is add up all the revenue you brought in, add up all the costs you've saved, and then divide it by your current salary. And the aim there is to get it to 2 times or more is good. If you get it to 3 times or more, great. If you get it to 5 times or more, you're pretty much laughing, because that is a huge amount of return on investment, and you have got a watertight case just with that. You should be able to go to your manager and say, hey, I'm bringing in 5 times more than I'm making. My salary definitely needs to be higher. So that's the first one, return on investment. And I know that one is a bit tricky. So if you do find it hard, don't worry. Just drop a comment into the description and I'll help you. I promise you I'll look at it and I'll reply to you. So that's the first one. Second section is benchmarking. So benchmarking essentially is scanning the market. What are other roles paid so that I can compare against my role? And the goal is to show that other roles are paid higher than yours if you're looking for a higher salary. And you're going to do it internally and externally. Internally means looking for internal job specs with salaries on them. Not every company does that, but if you can get them, great. And asking people that you know what their salary is in similar roles. And so you've got to be careful with that one. Just make sure that they know what you're going to use it for. make sure you have the appropriate discretion with their salary if they do share it. But that's the internal side. You can't always get either of those. Sometimes you can get neither. So don't worry if you can't. It's not that important. The more important one is the external one. So what you're going to do is you're going to look on sites like Glassdoor, Indeed. Just going to use Google or AI as well. ChatGPT is a great use for this. You're going to look at broad categories of role in a similar location to where you are, and you're going to look at the salary ranges for those. And you're going to link to them in the document, and you're going to share to show that the other roles are paid higher than yours. And say a role say there's like a marketing manager in London, it's paid between 35 and 50k. If you have a lot of experience, you're going to want to be saying, okay, well, I have 5 years experience and I'm currently paid 40k, whereas in fact 5 years experience is like the top end for most marketing managers, and so I should be paid 50k because that's the top bracket. That's the kind of thing that you're going to be doing with this section. And if you're finding that like all the salaries you're finding is about similar to your role, and you're at the top of your level and the top of your bracket, then you should actually be pushing for a promotion as well as a raise. So you need to go back up to the top of your document and you need to say, in this review, I'm looking for a promotion to X level and this salary to go along with it. Like, that's all you need to do. Just change that you're looking for a promotion as well as a raise at the top of the doc. So that's the second section. Now the final section is, we talked about potential. The final thing is to show that your responsibilities have grown over the past year. So businesses pay more money and they're set up to pay more money to people who have more responsibility and take on more risk as a result. So the CEO, he gets the most or she gets the most because they are taking on the most risk. Their head is on the chopping block, and they have the hardest job. Everything feeds back to the CEO, so they should get paid the most. And similar thing with you is, say you took on 3 new direct reports over the last year because you started managing a new team. You should be getting a significant raise because of that, because that's a really big increase in responsibility. So that's the kind of thing that you should be thinking about. Have you taken on a new process, responsibility for a new product, maybe for a new team, a new person, a new direct report? What have you done over the past year, which is new growth and responsibilities? Okay, so those are the 3 sections. Have a go at fill it out yourself. If you can do a great job of filling all 3 out, amazing. If you struggle, please leave a comment and I'll try to help. If you're getting to the end and you're finding, hey, I don't have anything from growth and responsibilities, or I don't have anything on ROI, maybe it's not the right time to focus on negotiating to a salary for a new salary if that's where you are. Maybe what you need to do is take a step back in the process and look at your performance and look at your potential and ambition. And the document is going to expose that for you, whether you're ready to negotiate or whether you need to go back and you need to say, okay, how am I going to display my ROI over the next year? How am I going to take on more responsibility over the next year? And what you're going to do is try and pre-prepare this document so that by the next time you go for a pay review, you've got 3 times ROI, you've got some really clear benchmarking, and then you've got some really big increases in responsibility. So that's it. That's the way that I have secured really, really chunky raises. It's based off this foundation of high performance, development, potential, and ambition is the second thing, and then negotiation is the third thing. And this salary case document that I just explained to you is the key to a successful negotiation. And what you're going to do once you've got it and you've nailed it and you're happy with it is you're going to share it with your manager, and then you're going to chat to your manager about it. Honestly, just the act of doing that, even if you just leave it and let it sit, will massively, massively increase your chances of a big raise. So good luck. I really hope it works for you. And please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment below if you struggle. I'm quite happy to help. Hey, I completely forgot there to say at the end that if you found that useful, then I run a completely free weekly newsletter where I basically just document my journey from 30 to 80K in salary and what I've learned along the way, and then what I'm learning as I go from 80 and to my current target, which is 100. And hopefully, if you found this useful, then you'll find a lot more useful stuff in that newsletter. So I'll leave a link in the description. Just hit the link below and you can subscribe completely free.